Hello to the people. Alright, I want to talk about Amphoreus, specifically the 3 paths binding Amphoreus. I'm just gonna jump straight into it because I'm way too excited and I need to yap, okay? So the last time I made a video, it was around 2.4 that was out at the time. There were lots of things we didn't know about Amphoreus, pretty much everything, right? So back then, I said that I thought the main paths could be something, and remembrance. I thought it was possible the destruction could be the 3rd path binding Amphoreus. Well, now I think I have enough clues to definitively say what that 3rd path could be. Now, I could be wrong, of course, but I happen to believe that this is pretty substantial evidence. Okay, so I believe that the 3rd path binding Amphoreus is the Enigmata. Mythos the Enigmata. There are several reasons that I believe this. There are also some additional reasons that a fellow player who knows more about Honkai Impact 3rd than I do told me about their lore, so I'll get to those probably last, but I'll talk about all my reasons first. So, I had alarm bells rise up when I was playing through Castrum Kremnos specifically, because whenever Phynon and the MC branch off doing their own thing in the competition against Mighty, we come across this little slate, right? This slate that's kinda new-ish, and Phynon says something really interesting at that point. Phynon questions himself right then and there, asking, did Amphoreus have more dealings with Beyond the Sky than we thought? But nothing like that was ever in our historical materials. Instantly, when he said that, flags, alarm bells started getting raised in my head. That is such an enigmata thing to say. So that's what first turned me on to this idea that, oh, it could be mythos, right? This could be enigmata here. But there's more logical evidence than just that. Remember way back in, I believe it was 2.2, when there was talk of how Penacony came to be, and eventually they settled on, yes, it was the Stellaron that caused Penacony to be created, but if you were to not have a Stellaron, it would take an emanator of enigmata to create something of that scale. Now, hold on a second, right? Because we were told that Amphoreus is only visible through the Garden of Recollection's mirror. But then we also get this line from Herta at the end of 3.0. She said, I should know about this world, right? If Noose knows about this world, I should know about this world. I'm their emanator, right? But then she says, perhaps those garden folks lied to you. Now, I don't think this is a throwaway line at all. This is coming out of the mouth of a genius, and as much as I dislike Herta, she is a genius, right? She should know as an emanator about Amphoreus, but she has never heard of it. So, why? Why would Noose gatekeep knowledge of this world from Herta? Why would the Garden of Recollection lie about how what Amphoreus is, and how you find it? Why, unless an emanator of enigmata is involved that revised the history of Amphoreus, and maybe more than just the history. Maybe they're creating more of Amphoreus than we even realize. Now, I'm not saying that everyone we've met is fake, but I will say this, no one on Amphoreus knows where the prophecy that they're following came from. Phynon says at the beginning of 3.0, when we first meet him, we're talking to him outside of Cartonis' shop, we ask him where the prophecy came from. He doesn't know. He's a Chrysos heir. He does not know where the prophecy came from, what deity it came from. That's a massive red flag. It has guided their entire history for who knows how long. Generations of Chrysos heirs have lost their lives following this prophecy, I believe 6 core flames returned to the vortex of Genesis, before we even get there. That's all work they did before we even got there. This has been going on a very long time. And nobody knows where this prophecy came from. This very important prophecy that is currently defining Amphoreus in everyone's lives. It's not, you gotta be kidding me. They don't know where it came from. So, obviously, that's another huge red flag that perhaps it was made up. Perhaps it was made up by the Enigmata or an emanator thereof. If this already wasn't mounds and heaps of evidence, there's also more. Because as I've written, the little mechanic guidebook that we have gotten, sort of like the stamp thing in Penacony, this is the equivalent of that. As I've written, if we look into this for just a second, right, we are writing each character's history. When did we learn this? When did we learn these characters' history? Sure, we're striding on the path of remembrance now, right? Sure, we have Foolie's power now, and we can probably glean some memories in similar way to the way a memo keeper would. We're kind of doing the job of a memo keeper in As I've Written. But the problem is, you get an achievement for putting characters' stories into As I've Written. And that achievement is called Pure Fiction or Everlasting History. Why would it be named that? Why wouldn't it just say Everlasting History? If this is stuff that really happened, if we're writing down stuff that, sure, these characters it probably is their history, right? These characters probably have these stories, right? Why would there be any question about whether or not it would be fiction? Why would there be any question about it at all? It should just be everlasting history, unless this achievement is hinting at something greater, hinting at the possibility that perhaps everything on Amphoreus is not as it seems. Not to mention, by the way, the cheeky little thing that says, who wrote this story, right under the title of this achievement. Yeah, that could be just a cute little cheeky way of saying, oh yeah, the Trailblazer wrote this. But what if it's a hint? What if that's a hint? Who wrote this story? Could it be the Enigmata? So, there is a lot of evidence for the Enigmata being involved. And the cherry on top for me is the fact that mythos, is a Greek name. We've gotten, the names of the Aeons are clearly taken from different places, right? I believe Lan and Shipe and Yaoshe are all Chinese-based names. But then you've got other names like Nanook. I don't know where Nanook comes from, but it's clearly not a Chinese name. And you've got Mythos. Mythos is a Greek derivative. Apparently it comes from the word mythos. Shout out to World Collider for helping me with that piece of information. Mythos comes from the word mythos, Greek. That's a pretty significant tie as well. It would be kind of interesting and kind of weird if we did not get the Enigmata when it would fit so perfectly into the story and the name itself is Greek. So that would be really strange, just saying. So at this point, with just that evidence alone, I would be surprised if it wasn't the Enigmata, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. However, I got also an additional set of reasons that I said that I was going to talk about from a fellow player called Welfare Waifu. So thank you, Welfare Waifu, for this Honkai Impact 3rd knowledge that I did not have. Apparently, in Honkai Impact 3rd, you meet a figure that is reminiscent of an emanator of Enigmata. And that person has gold woven into their design, has gold, an element of gold, like ichor, like golden blood, right? This flowing golden blood has been associated with mythos in that game, apparently. So that is a huge red flag, because if I'm pretty sure it's been shoved into our faces over and over and over that this ichor is supposed to be the blood of the gods, this golden blood that flows through the Chrysos heir's veins. What if it isn't? What if it's not the blood of the gods at all? What if it's just the enigmata? And I'm not sure if that would be the blood of the enigmata, or if it's just, part of the enigmata. I don't know. But I remember, once again, World Collider said something interesting, that usually in Greek myth, golden blood has been associated with being a demigod, or literally you have the blood of a god flowing through your veins. In Greek mythology, that's what ichor is. So once again, we see that that kind of little inconsistency could be chalked up to just Hoyo not being completely true to Greek mythology as its source material. It could be getting it a little bit wrong. But it also could be a hint that maybe it's not actually the blood of the gods. So once again, thank you to Welfare Waifu for pointing that out, that enigmata has been associated with golden blood, because the reason why I originally said destruction might be the third path is because destruction is the one we see with golden blood in this game, right? The Aeon with golden blood seems to be the destruction in this game. That doesn't mean that in this part of the game, which is heavily connected to Honkai Impact 3rd, with the Flame Chasers and its characters, that doesn't mean that it couldn't be the enigmata in the same way it was in that game. Also worth noting that Mythos kind of has beef with Nous, because Mythos doesn't want everything in the universe to be known, and that's kind of counter to what Nous stands for. And so, since erudition is already one of the paths tethering Amphoreus, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that Mythos wants to take it back from them. So that's a possibility as well. I would call that circumstantial, but it's certainly a tidbit worth thinking about. And hold up, I can't believe that I missed this. This is something I just found when I was doing research for this video. I don't really have a script, so I was just going in and looking for stuff afterwards to put in as photos for what I was talking about. But when I was doing that, I was checking the Honkai Star Rail wiki, and right there, Herta tells us at one point that the enigmata was born from the remembrance. So there is another massive proof right there. The enigmata was born from the remembrance. Mythos came from Fuli. So need I draw the connection for you? Amphoreus is completely fettered by remembrance. It's the main path that we know is binding Amphoreus is remembrance. If we have remembrance, and then also erudition, who Mythos has beef with, it's pretty clear that the third path kind of has to be enigmata for this to make sense. So I'm gonna definitively say, with this massive proof, the third path is enigmata. It has to be. Unless there is some greater overarching thing that the Honkai Star Rail devs have thought up, the third path is enigmata. I can't imagine it being anything different at this point. So that is all my evidence for enigmata being the third path binding Amphoreus. I think it's pretty good evidence, right? So tell me what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm totally wrong? If you think I'm totally wrong, please, I would love to hear why. I would love to hear your lore theories. I love lore. So anything, I'm perfectly happy being totally wrong if that is the case. So give me all the lore. But I hope you enjoyed. Don't like and don't subscribe. Bye. See you sometime.